Doris's dinosaur. "What are we studying, boys and girls?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "Dinosaurs," answered everybody. "Yes," said Mrs. Jenkins. "Now it is time to decorate the halls of Hilltop School with our paintings of dinosaurs. Try and paint the best dinosaur you can. You may pick out any kind you like, flying, walking, or swimming." Grace chose a pterodactyl. She copied it perfectly from the encyclopedia. It was fabulous. Claude's Apatosaurus was wonderful. Yoko finished her Stegosaurus early and helped one of the Frank twins with his painting of a flying raptor. Everybody chose a wonderful dinosaur. "Doris, how about yours?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "I can't," said Doris. "Let me help," offered Grace. "I don't want help," said Doris. Doris dipped her paintbrush into the blue color. She swirled it on the paper. Then Doris dipped her blue brush in the yellow paint. It turned green. She painted green blobs. After that, Doris put down her brush in disgust. "See," said Doris with a snort, "I can't paint." Everyone noticed Dora's painting, but no one said anything about it. Mrs. Jenkins hung all of the pictures in the hallway of Hilltop School. Everyone admired them. But Doris knew everyone hated her painting. "Doris," said Mrs. Jenkins, "you don't have to paint anything you don't want to." But Doris knew everyone laughed at her because she could not paint a dinosaur. If Doris found someone looking too hard at her blue swirl, she thwacked her tail loudly on the floor to scare them away. One day, during playtime, Doris came inside for a drink of water. Charles was staring at Doris's blue swirl. He was smiling. "What are you looking at?" asked Doris. "I am looking at your painting," said Charles. Why are you looking?" asked Doris. "I like it," said Charles. "I don't believe you," said Doris. "No, really, I like it," said Charles. "This picture makes me feel all peaceful inside." "You're crazy," said Doris. But every day before rest time, Charles stood in the hall and looked at Doris's picture. Charles sighed and then closed his eyes. "Charles seems to like your picture, Doris," said Mrs. Jenkins. "He's crazy," said Doris. "Oh, I don't think so," said Mrs. Jenkins. "Now, what are we doing tomorrow, class?" "We are going to the museum to see the dinosaurs," said everyone. "That's right," said Mrs. Jenkins. "Remember to bring your dinosaur notebooks, $1 spending money, and your lunch." Mrs. Osio showed everybody around the museum. In the first room were the bones of a very old woolly mammoth. "Is a woolly mammoth a dinosaur, boys and girls?" asked Mr. Osio. "No," answered everyone. "Why not?" asked Mr. Osio. "Because a woolly mammoth is a mammal," answered almost everyone. "What a smart class with a good teacher," said Mr. Osio. "Take out your notebooks, class," said Mrs. Jenkins. Timothy drew a 100-toothed rattlesnake. Yoko drew a pincher turtle. "What's your picture, Doris?" asked Grace. "I can't draw," said Doris. "Let me show you how," said Grace. Grace showed Doris how to draw a woolly mammoth. After Grace left, Doris covered her whole page with her red marker. Then she put little black dots in the middle. Yoko looked at it. She said nothing. "You think I'm stupid," said Doris. Soon it was time for lunch. Lunch was in the garden. Mrs. Jenkins began to count heads. She could not find Charles. "Charles, where are you?" Mrs. Jenkins called. Charles did not come. "Everyone," said Mrs. Jenkins, Please put down your sandwiches and find Charles." Claude found him. "Where were you?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "I was in the other part of the museum," said Charles. "Come see." Everyone ate their sandwiches and followed Charles. Mr. Osio was the guide. "Ooh," said everyone. "What are these?" asked Grace. "These are paintings by one of the most wonderful artists in the world," said Mr. Osio. "The artist's name was Henri Matisse." Everybody stared. There on the far wall was a blue swirl. On the right wall was a red square with little black dots. "What do you think of these pictures, boys and girls?" asked Mr. Osio. For a long, long time, nobody answered. Then Doris's hand went up. "What do you think, young lady?" asked Mr. Osio. "I guess Mr. Matisse didn't feel like drawing dinosaurs," said Doris. On the bus ride home, everyone noticed that Doris was smiling the whole way. And that's it. That was Doris's dinosaur.